our buddy Frank Seravalli joins us here. Frank,
how
we doing, buddy?
Here.
Frank,
I'm good. Nice to see you guys.
And I was going to text you. I was like, well, we got Ziegler's deal coming down. If you need some extra time, or maybe it's too tight, we'll get you later. But here you are.
Yeah, the only thing too tight are my pants.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
You got to buy them bigger, Frank.
I'm getting to the point where they don't make them that much bigger. Until you go to the big and tall.
Stop.
See, that's the ultimate motivator. And I'll tell you what, and not to whatever. I'm down 36 pounds since September. And that was it was like when you get to 2XL and you know that the shirts don't go any further without going to special sections of the store, you're like, God damn it, I really need to get it in gear.
This is on me now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. That's a lot of LBs. Well, you know what? We can talk about the Seegers, but we're right in the middle of kind of Anderson stuff. Your report came out Friday, Saturday. You were kind of the ahead of the group, and good on that. And then we're not surprised that the ask is probably one where it tells you all you need to know. Well, that's a lot of dough. So we need to just say goodbye. Time for a fresh start for both sides. This gives the Flames an opportunity, you would think, to get a very good return, being that July 1 money hasn't been spent yet, that draft picks have not been spent. The likelihood seems very high for a Rasmus Andersson trade in the short term. Would you agree?
I'd say it's moderately high. I think this isn't like bluster or cover or spin when I tell you that the Flames are absolutely totally fine heading into next season with Rasmus Andersson on their blue line, because teams are going to go nuts on the trade market and free agency this summer. And all the same teams that are in contender mode at the deadline are all going to be hungry for a right shot defenseman who isn't afraid to play physically. And all that will add up to is the Flames potentially having the premier right shot guy available. So his value in March is going to be no different. It may even be better than it is at this exact moment in time. So is there a chance that he gets moved this week? Yeah, there's a real possibility. But if the Flames don't get everything that they're looking for, they're going to sit back and go, that's fine. We can wait until we're the only team standing that has a player of this caliber, and we'll be just fine.
Last time they went into the season with significant free agents, I would think it would be silly to suggest it wasn't a big distraction. You had Lindholm, you had Hanifin, you had Zadorov. It wasn't just one. How much stock do you put in keeping that out of the room, that sort of storm cloud potentially of a guy that, he's going to get traded at some point? When's it happening?
Yeah, I think Craig Conroy is very sensitive to that because he's lived it already. And two, I think the other thing that you really want to guard against is this team that has Dustin Wolf take maybe even yet another step this upcoming season and drags you into playoff contention again. And you go, man, really don't want to cut the legs out from under my team in trading Rasmus Andersson at the deadline. But if you're going to go through this process, you have to, and if you're not going to pull the trigger this summer, you have to make an omerta with yourself, a blood oath that under any circumstance, no matter what happens, the best situation for the Calgary Flames moving forward is to trade Rasmus Andersson. You can't talk yourself into, maybe he could be the own rental. No. That can't be how it works. Right. So you have to know going in that you're going to be able to rip that Band-Aid off.
It feels like the Flames have been there so many times, right? We're 3 points back. How do we trade this guy? We're going to make a push.
The ultimate flirt.
Don't confuse yourself.
Yeah. What is a good return for Rasmus Andersson? Do we have an opinion on that?
I think it's got to be pretty significant. Like, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I was talking about this today on the DFO rundown with Jason Greger, and I threw out my hot take, which I might need an oven mitt because it's scalding. And someone somewhere is going to say, Frank, you are the dumbest person I've ever seen, which they say.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you or Frank?
Me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I said, if I had a choice between the two, I think I'd actually prefer Rasmus Andersson to Noah Dobson.
Why?
Am I insane?
Well, we don't see a lot of the Islanders here. We know that was a pick the Flames had that got used by the Islanders in the Hamonic deal. But what explain why you'd prefer Rasmus to a guy that had what like 70, almost 70 points 2 years ago?
He had 70 points 2 years ago, but his career average is actually, I know he's 3 years younger, but his career average is somewhat close to Andersson. Like it seems like that 70-point year is an outlier. Anderson's a pretty consistent double-digit goal scorer from the back end. And I just think he brings a more well-rounded game than Dobson does. That I don't want to say that Dobson is a specialist by any means, because I think that's a bridge too far. But I just think he does other parts of the game better than Dobson does as a defenseman. And then you throw in the one additional year at a very reasonable cap hit. Like, I think there's a case to be made that, especially when we get into talking about Dobson at $9+ million a year, in the long run, yeah, you'd have to pay a trade acquisition to get him and then re-up him on the next contract. But in the long run, is Dobson a better fit for your team and what you're looking to build than Andersson? I really don't know the answer to that.
So that's a valuable asset then. If you,
I think so. I think it's an incredibly valuable asset.
Like I agree with you. I don't want to drag it into the season. He's going to be a pro. I think knowing Rasmus, he is going to come in. He's not going to be it's not going to draw attention to himself, but it's just going to be there. And then you run the risk for, potential, like you say, oh, hey, we're good. Now we can't trade him. Plus just injury, all of that sort of thing. I just think Craig needs to, not often he's been in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, who's in a position to take Noah Hannafin or here you go. The cap hit is manageable for everybody. And the thing is right now with the Florida Panthers, you need dogs in the playoff. You got Rasmus Andersson's a dog. He would slide right into that Florida team and fit in like a dirty shirt.
Yeah.
He can go anywhere. And that's the type of player you're getting. If I'm Conroy, maybe it doesn't have to be done because it's not about this year's draft picks, but I want a deal done before the start of the season. We turn the page, we come to camp with whatever it is we got. And it gives you time to address, depending what you get in a trade from somebody, you can go to July 1 and add a defenseman of some sort to fill that hole if you don't think you can internally.
They have pick 32, pick 18, and Rasmus. Do you think there'd be teams willing to move out of top 10 picks for Rasmus? Because there are some teams we didn't expect to be picking high there, be it Nashville, Boston, theoretically Utah.
I don't really see any of those three teams being a fit, though. That's the problem.
Okay.
Like, I think Utah's top four is pretty well solidified.
Yeah.
I think Boston, same thing.
Dallas seems like a fit, doesn't it,
really
Frank?
does,
yeah. And when I think about Nashville, I'm like, they need a center, not a right shot defenseman. So,
they need both. I think Justin Barron's their
anyway.
best,
So Dallas, we've heard a lot about Jason Robertson, which we can talk about. They trade Mason Marchment. They re-sign Matt Duchene. They fired their coach. They're trying to get things going. It's busy time for Jim Nill.
Why wouldn't the Flames have been one of those teams in on Marchment?
That's another guy. We talked about Zegras, but Marchment.
Well, he's 30, 1 year left at 4.5. I don't know. What does he?
25 goal potential
in Calgary, though, does he? Or that's
that's the thing. You have to take everyone and all right, adjust it down a little bit because the team struggles to score so much. But at some point, when you add a couple of those guys, maybe that conversation changes.
What are the Flames? Like, I think that's part of the problem. That honestly, why are we not getting Marchment? I think probably because you don't know exactly what you are. Are you going for a playoff spot? Then why are you moving Andersson?
Well, because Anderson's going to want not
I
just
know,
the
but I'm
dollars,
just
but
saying
the
that
terms.
down the way at Saddle Dome Rise, I think there's still some confusion as to
I do too.
How far are we stripping this back?
Yeah.
That's the question.
I don't think there is any, I'm not being funny. I don't think there's any confusion at all. I think the Flames know that they are a fringe playoff team. And if they're going to go and become a team that is not just eventually a solid playoff team, but then trying to vault into the next highest category, that it's going to take time. So by the time they get to where they want to get to, Anderson's going to be 31 or
But Marchment's
32.
not part of it either.
But I'm taking for that price, that was free 99.
Yeah, you
The
can flip
Flames
with
have an
deadlines
abundance of cap space. You gave up not even spare parts. What the Flyers gave up for Zegras was spare parts. Honestly, the Flyers had 7 picks in the first 64. They traded pick number 45 and Ryan Poehling, who anyone could get in free agency for middle tier dollars, and a fourth. Like, are you kidding? Like, that's the type of player that you look at and you go, I'm telling you, just from the messages I've gotten since I've been on the show, I'm seeing them pop into the right corner of my screen. Other teams are like, wait, that was it? We could have done better than that. We didn't know that this is what was happening.
I'm with you. I just, my only disagreement with you is that you think they have got clarity. I don't. I think I still think there's pull in both directions to strip it down and go younger and to go for the playoffs.
I don't think they're stripping it down. I think they're just finding
then why weren't they in on Zegras and Zegras is a perfect, and they didn't use their cap space last year at all.
And that's they won't moving forward. They're going to be a budget team. They're going to be an internal cap team because at least until the new building is open, they're not going to be able to generate the revenue necessary with salaries being paid out in US dollars to be that team that is competing for top end players and spending to the cap.
Well, it's Calgary. They're not going to compete for top end players in free agency anyway. So it's
not so they're competitive again, right? Like you got your Tanevs and your Markstroms and Colemans. Yeah, you have to be good to attract people in free agency.
By the way, speaking of Markstrom, I'm glad you brought him up. Could we see a Jacob Markstrom, Dan Vladar reunion in New Jersey?
So Jake Allen's up there. They're looking for a backup.
And it's my understanding is those two guys ended up getting along pretty well.
What's the market for Allen like?
He's the belle of the ball, crazy enough. Like he's the top free agent goalie available by a significant margin.
He's been a great sort of platoon mate 1B type guy. Anytime he's asked to be the number one, it hasn't been as good. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I don't think you need him to be the 1A. You just need him to be the 1B.
That's the description of a backup, right?
Oh,
so I can give you some solid starts, but I can't on a regular.
Yeah, so it's like, would the Oilers be like, hey, let's put this guy with Stuart Skinner, or is it like, no, we got to go bigger than that? Those two.
I think they have to go bigger than that, but I was talking about where Vladar goes, and then what do the Flames do with their backup spot? Everyone just assumes that Cooley would be the guy, and I think the Flames would be comfortable with that if and only if Cooley plays the way that he did to start the season, as opposed to the way that he ended the season, which has left them with a little bit of a question mark as to, do we also need a backup?
Well, and look,
I just want to go back. Yeah. I mean, the goalie thing will be there down the road. Just in terms of Anderson,
the backup goalie thing doesn't get you horny.
Not so much. I'm kind of
tough to please.
Dallas and Jason Robertson. I don't know. Is it tricky? How would you describe that? He scores 20 to 25. He feels like he's got 40 potential. He's highly skilled.
He's hit 40.
Was injured near the end of the season and then wasn't right in the playoffs. Are they loath to move this player? Are they ready to move this player? What's your take on Robertson in Dallas?
I think they're somewhere in the middle. They recognize that they're in cap hell, that this is a guy who, for the second half of the season, was one of the very best players in the league. The first half, he played his way off of Team USA, which is an amazing thing for an American roster to turn down a 40-goal, 100-point player in the NHL.
Yeah.
Would have never been possible 10, 15 years ago. And moving forward, they know that if they trade Jason Robertson, their team is worse. But the flip side of that is that they also need to pay Jason Robertson that next contract, which is going to be a raise from 7.75 to what?
Something over 10, probably.
And so then
goals,
that just compounds the cap situation you already have. My guess is that they hang on to him, that they've taken the temperature of teams to figure out what they'd be willing to offer, that everyone recognizes the position that they're in, so they're not going to be getting a great deal. And you figure it out next summer or at this deadline if your team doesn't play well, as opposed to trying to do that now. If I were the Stars, I'd be doing anything possible to unload Dumba and Lyubushkin and then figure out the right side of that defense. And you're right. Rasmus Andersson would be a great fit there. I just also don't know that they have the assets to get it done.
Yeah. Now, I know Rhett asked the question. In your mind, what, and I don't know if maybe I spaced out, a return for Rasmus Andersson. What is the ask from Craig Conroy? 1 year of this guy, given the cap hit and all of that?
I don't know. I don't know if he's more focused on roster players or futures or a blend of both. I don't think that part's been made clear because I think the truth is he doesn't really know.
Yeah.
I think in a perfect world, when you talk about the clarity of where this team is at and where they're heading, they'd prefer roster players. They'd prefer guys that they can plug into this team right in the here and now that are somewhere between 23 and 26 that they can control for a while. And that part, there's not a lot of teams that are willing to cast those guys off of their roster.
When I look at the Lindholm deal, I sort of see that as probably the best deal that Connie's made in terms of a return. He got a first, he got a prospect, he got another late pick and another prospect, and the roster player that was Kuzmenko, who, they theoretically could have flipped, and they didn't really flip him when he was high, but they did flip him. Like that to me is kind of the template: player, prospect, first, and then if you can get more than that in a bidding war, pull the trigger.
Those in-season trades seem to always be a little bit different. I think when you're doing it in the offseason, you have the opportunity to maybe shoot for a little bit higher end.
Okay. So in terms of the player,
in terms of roster player,
yeah.
And by the way, we're all old enough to remember that Craig Conroy was ripped for that trade.
The Lindholm one?
Yeah. Oh, look, all the trades, not good enough, not enough.
Yeah, I like the Lindholm one.
Yeah, the Hanifin one, I think he'd have been ripped more if he'd have signed that extension than if he would have moved.
The same thing with Lindholm. Could you imagine if this team had those guys under contract now?
It'd be gross.
I think I said this also this morning on the rundown. I think if you're the Golden Knights, Pietrangelo has some LTIR conversations to have for sure, but they might be in a spot where they need to consider moving Hanifin.
He didn't have a great playoffs from some accounts.
Well, neither did Shea Theodore, but I think he's the guy you hang on to. Hanifin is this is how I view him, a really nice accessory piece to have on your team, but not a driver.
100%.
And the other flip side to that is, as everyone is going to be blowing their brains out on Gavrikov and whoever else is on the market, would you sign Hanifin to 7 times 7-3? Someone probably would somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
So they'd have a window to move him, but it's going to be really
open up cap space for Marner type activities or what?
Yeah, that would be the thought process, is that's who they'd be looking at.
Is there any amount of panic level with Brad Treliving, do you think, in Toronto? Because Marner will not be back, which is a foregone conclusion, it feels like. So there's a 100-point player. And then if Tavares doesn't take this hometown discount that everyone thinks, the expectations are that they're the one team that gave Florida a run. They're close. What happens if Marner leaves, and then are they going to swing for free agents? What are they doing in Toronto if both of those guys, or even if Marner's going to go? What do they do there?
I think everyone in this league gets so twisted about, oh my God, what are we going to do when this guy leaves? How are we going to exist? It's like the ultimate opportunity. You get a chance to remake your team, to do things in a different way with cap space and flexibility and options. You've got other assets that you can trade if you want to. You can't when you're signing another guy to an 11, 12, $13 million deal. You're right back in that hell. And I think feeling the pressure, no, I'd be feeling the excitement, because that's how you make things different.
Yeah, I don't think Brad Treliving is crushed. I think maybe could you have traded him, that sort of thing, but
he tried.
He is not the type of player that he covets or that would seem to be. That still is going to come down. Who's willing to spend the money for that player who has serious questions about his ability to elevate in the playoffs?
But someone somewhere is drunk with the idea that they can be the team that actually proves that he can be a playoff player.
Starting to hear some thought about players maybe going really, really short term with the huge cap growth we've seen, and then jumping back in when maybe the cap's $130 million in a few years. I mean, is that something we're going to see more of this offseason? I know even with speculation around McDavid's next deal, if it's in Edmonton, maybe it's a very short one, is one of the things suggested.
I think it's a case-by-case situation. I don't see Connor McDavid taking a shorter-term deal less than max, because I don't know what's his incentive to do so. First off, this is a player that will hate the discussion around taking a shorter-term deal, as if it signals that he's not a believer or that he wants to put his team's feet to the fire. Two, I don't think he wants to go through this again, period, because it's not what he's interested in. He wants to play hockey. Three, he's going to make a pile of money either way, and an extra couple bucks here or there. Let's just call it 8 times 16. That's $128 million. He's already made 110. Like, again, not a concern. I don't even see the incentive for him to go shorter term. How much more could you possibly make? And then the truth is, he can have some leverage over his team if they're not making the improvements that he needs to see to win. He's the best player in the world. If he raises his hand at any point and says, I want out,
yeah,
the Edmonton Oilers are going to do whatever it is that he says, because that's how life works. So with that, will Mitch Marner take less? Maybe, but I would indicate that is a player who's unsure about a lot of things. Yeah, he wants to go to the trough again to get paid for a higher AAV, sure. But he's also probably not sure about where he really wants to play, where the most competitive teams are going to be, and frankly, what the market for him looks like at this moment in time, given a lot of the uncertainties that we just talked about. I don't think his market is as big as everyone makes it out to be. How many teams are really in line to pay that type of money?
Carolina and Vegas are the two we've heard the most. Is that fair?
Probably, but if we're really being honest, given the lack of playoff success and given what he's already been earning, wouldn't you just make a case that if you're really only taking a 2-year deal, that you shouldn't be getting that much of a raise?
I think the way that agents should view this, and probably do, is a percentage of the cap. And so even if you make the same percentage of the cap in 3 years, that's just a bigger number.
I understand how math works. I'm saying that agents are drunk on this thought process that percentage of cap. Like, that's just, it's not always how it's going to be. And with the cap rising, there's going to be some teams or some players that get caught being sold a bill of goods about what they think it should be, when I just talked about some of the new economic realities that are going to be existing in this sport. Calgary is going to be just one example of a third of the league that's we're not going to be at the cap anymore. This is not how it's going to operate.
So is it baseball? We're going to start watching, kind of like I brought that up last week, and I'm not like, if I've got friends that work in Winnipeg, and you see Edmonton go to the finals, and you're in Calgary, lived in Buffalo. Those are not top of the table teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the ownership's not going to spend, is it because the ownership won't spend to it, or is it just that the revenues won't get you to what you can spend? And does it turn into a baseball type scenario?
It's not going to be that extreme, because at the end of the day, there's still a floor and there's still a ceiling. And owners can always spend whatever they want. They just need to be willing to write the check. And I don't think the Flames ownership has ever really signaled that they're willing to write the check for a long period of time. Short windows, maybe, yes. But when it comes to, look at how much fans are being charged. When you open the new building, you're going to have new revenue streams that you never had before, and that's going to be hugely important and critical to the Flames' long-term success. But you can only still charge so much for a lower level seat, or for a suite, or for whatever it is, before there's this market imbalance and fans start to turn away no matter how good the team is. And so when 3 years from now, or 2 additional seasons from now, when the cap is going to be $162 million a year Canadian, you're going to have this imbalance where you just can't charge enough to possibly make back the money that you're spending in salaries, in addition to operations and running everything else, that you're going to have to make adjustments somewhere. You just are. It's a fact of life.
Well, and counterpoint, Oilers top revenue generator ever in a season this year?
Well, I think for a playoff run, I don't think that that they've beaten the Rangers or Maple Leafs or Canadians in the long haul. No.
Okay.
Well, Frankie boy, and I think it's out there that you are moving on from Daily Face-Off and the Nation Network. This is our, this is a little say hello, say goodbye. And you know what? You're kind of responsible for this barn burner thing being a thing. So I don't know who to thank you or punch you in the mouth or what to exactly do.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I guess I'm probably due a punch in the mouth.
We all are, Frank.
But yeah, I wanted to come by and say thank you guys for everything. It's definitely a bittersweet week for me. Being part of this and helping build it from the ground up. It's been pretty emotional. Going the other way out the door. And I wish you guys nothing but the absolute best and all the success in the world. I'm a huge believer in all three of you and the product. And I know that you guys are serving the Calgary market super well and can't wait to watch you from afar.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
I'm just glad you got your jacket back.
Did he get the booze from Rhett yet? I'm concerned about you got to clear your debt.
It's a stuck in customs.
Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
Tariffs.
The tariffs. It's
Someone's going to pay that tariff on it. Yeah.
Rhett.
Yeah. So are you working July 1st? Are you off or?
I'm going to be working, just not
Okay.
a Daily Face-Off.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Okay.
You're a sweet boy. We love you.
Great at what you do, Frank.
Take care of you.
Thank you guys. We'll see you down the road for a beer somewhere.
You bet. Thanks, Frankie. Frank Seravalli, one of the good ones, one of the very best at what he does. We will miss him. Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.